Call your loved ones now if you need to. I can guarantee you cell service will soon be overwhelmed. Eat something, stay hydrated, use the bathroom while there's time, and meet back here for a full briefing in 5 minutes.
What's going on?
After having followed the hectic daily lives of healthcare professionals in a Pittsburgh ER for a couple of episodes, there's a specific turning point in HBO's The Pitt that accelerated the intensity beyond anything I have ever experienced in a story like this. If you haven't seen it, don't worry, I won't discuss any major spoilers, but for context, the story builds towards this mass casualty event that spans multiple episodes. And by the time it was over, and my heartbeat found its original rhythm again, I realized what had just happened. This hospital show had basically remade the Battle of Helm's Deep. Well, not literally. What I mean is that the show, in its essence, is structured like an epic battle sequence, which the climax of The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers might still be the best example of. Years ago, the Nerdwriter already made a solid video about how a great battle sequence has its own narrative structure, with a series of plot beats and an emotional flow that resembles the beginning, middle, and ending of a traditional story arc. And while it might seem like an unusual choice for a hospital show, which you know is about saving lives instead of taking them, I think this is also exactly what made it so uniquely intense and engaging. And I would even argue that this is what transformed The Pitt into one of the most important shows I've seen in a long time. This video is brought to you by Mubi. Go to mubi.com/likestoriesofold for an extended free trial.
Cooperation and understanding as we prepare for a mass casualty event.
First, let's break down how this battle structure works in a hospital setting. For starters, before we get to the actual battle, there is the build-up. The grand battle in itself is already a climax to the tension that preceded it. Here we can distinguish two elements. The first is the general context, the nature of the greater war that the battle takes place in. This is The Pitt as we get to know it in the first couple of episodes. It's an ER that is understaffed, underfunded, and where the doctors, nurses, and trainees are already struggling to keep their heads above water.
Like I said, there's a nursing shortage.
Well, if you paid them a living wage, they'd be lining up to work here.
This is their greater war, remaining committed to their cause and keeping their spirits alive within an environment where they are continuously confronted with defeat, with aggression, and with their own limits as human beings.
Med student down.
From this already intense and somewhat desperate status quo, we move into the second element of the build-up, which is the sudden emergence of an extraordinary threat. Throughout the show, there are several clues foreshadowing that something big, something unforeseen is about to happen. And indeed, soon enough, the news breaks that a mass casualty event has occurred, and that the ER is about to be flooded with dozens of critically injured victims.
We're locking down the hospital.
What's that mean? Has that happened before?
At this point, it's clear that this is going to be a life or death situation, not just literally for the incoming patients, but also spiritually for the heroes who have already been pushed to the edge and who are about to face their biggest challenge yet. A challenge so monumental that it might just decide the outcome of the entire war.
Surgery's ready. We're here, we're ready.
And so, with everything at stake, the great battle begins. One more quick note regarding spoilers. While I won't discuss any specific plot details, I will talk about the general through line of the story arc that spans the last few episodes of the show. So if you want to go in completely blind, maybe save this video for later. Personally speaking, however, I don't think this is the type of show where the twists and turns of the plot matter as much as your emotional investment in the characters, which will still be there even if you already have a rough idea of how the story unfolds. But again, it's up to you. With that out of the way, let's start with the first phase of the actual battle: preparation. Knowing what's coming for them, the hospital staff has minimal time to get ready. In this stage, the regular order of business is completely suspended for the emergency situation, and our heroes go into full battle mode.
Okay, everybody, listen up. This is how it's going to work.
We see leaders stepping up with directions. New lines of defense are being established. New roles are being handed out.
Our ambulance bay is now our triage. EMS will be overwhelmed. Most will probably arrive by car, several victims per vehicle.
After all, extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures.
This is no frills combat zone medicine. No ultrasound, no x-rays, no CT, no labs.
As the audience, this is where we're getting to understand the stage, the available resources, and the battle plan. There's triage outside at the door, a red zone for the most urgent cases, there's a pink zone, a yellow zone, there's crates of emergency supplies, which seem like a lot, but as the attending doctor forewarns,
We can burn through all that in the first hour.
there are also reinforcements coming in as the night shift has been called up early, a most welcome addition to our band of wary heroes. Question is, will it be enough? Well, we're about to find out.
Communicate. Ask for help if you need it. Trust your attendings. We will get through this together.
Damn right we will.
We now move into the second phase, into the battle proper. This is the main chunk of the story, with a series of plot beats and emotional ups and downs that you will surely recognize, such as the deflection of the first wave. Here the first victims are pouring in and the newly established emergency structure is being tested. Not everything goes as planned, but generally so far so good. The system is working, the defense is holding.
Only way out is through. Any idea how many more are coming?
We may not even be halfway through yet.
Jesus, when is this gonna end?
But as new waves of victims keep flooding in, that initial defense eventually starts to weaken. This is where we're reaching the first breaking points, the first tactical retreats, which here come in the form of problems like emergency supplies running out and the last bags of blood being used.
I need Oneg! Oneg's gone, honey. Glory's got more flying in.
It's not gonna last that long.
It's the point where the overall situation is worsening, but at the same time, it's against those rising odds that the battlefield also most clearly becomes a stage for heroism, becomes the moment for the battling characters to unveil their resilience, their courage, and their general moral excellence.
Watch out!
As the emergency in the pit escalates, we see new heroes finding their voice and their strength, see them improvising in clever ways with the limited resources at their disposal, making bold moves that they wouldn't have dared to do otherwise,
Raboa, are you shitting me?
that they probably shouldn't have been allowed to do otherwise.
Okay, you never should have done that on your own, ever. But that was pretty badass. You saved your life. Good job.
And catching hidden dangers that would have easily been missed without their heightened state of alertness.
Hey, good catch, you two.
Thank you, Dr. Abbott.
Here we also see the veterans, the already established heroes, prove their reputations in awe-inspiring ways.
You told us never to pass the tube unless we see the vocal cords.
Correct. Not today.
They are performing high-risk and highly complicated operations under extreme pressure.
Looks good on the end title.
Slick move, boss.
They're leading everyone else at the height of the chaos.
Positive for males over 13, women over 55, Oneg for everybody else.
And they're just powering through with these crazy displays of sheer virtue. I mean, at some point, one of the attending doctors is donating his own blood while working on a patient.
Are you donating?
Oneg, yeah.
And it's just the most badass thing I've seen in I don't know how long. And more than that, it's not just that people are stepping up as individuals, but also that they're really coming together as a collective force. They're really becoming more than the sum of their parts, which in turn unlocks new levels of competency and battling strength that are strangely moving to witness. There's just something genuinely inspiring about seeing how past grievances and interpersonal conflicts suddenly seem unimportant in this emergency context. As if such extraordinary situations strip bare the essence of our humanity and reveal how, when push comes to shove, we will always place the greater common good over our individuality and selfish concerns. Or at least that's what those who we end up revering as heroes do. But despite everyone giving their best, and despite them giving us that brief glimpse of humanity at its finest and most heroic, the hospital staff is soon reminded of just how badly the odds were stacked against them, how desperate of a battle this really was. And eventually, the force pressing down on them just becomes too much. Personal stakes are rising, difficult choices have to be made, and everything that was thought to be won now suddenly seems to be lost.
Okay, we're done.
The fortress is taken. It is over.
This is the moment of ultimate desperation, the moment where defeat suddenly feels palpable and imminent. Not just because the tide is turning in a material sense, but also, and especially so, because the heroic spirit has reached its breaking point. In this darkest hour, our heroes struggle with the loss of hope. They are questioning why they ever thought they had a fighting chance to begin with, why they're doing this to themselves, and why they shouldn't just give up and admit defeat.
How do you deal with all this death and carnage?
What can men do against such reckless hate?
I don't know.
But luckily, our story doesn't end here, for it is at this point that it's time for one final rally, one final push, if not for victory, then at least for one more honorable effort. Our despairing heroes get back up, recollect themselves, and once more do what they do best. And it's in that last demonstration of their valor that they are ultimately relieved by the arrival of the cavalry, by the unexpected reinforcements that help to turn the tide of the battle, transform the imminent defeat into a grand and definitive moment of victory. And this is not what happens in the pit. Not exactly, at least. For while there is no such immediate salvation for the weary hospital staff, no cavalry that had been waiting on the sidelines, that final beat in the battle sequence, more than anything, is a symbolical one. Even in the world of Tolkien, it's not a deus ex machina, it's not an intervention suddenly coming to the rescue from the outside. Instead, it's more like a manifestation of the power of hope. It's a cathartic moment that captures in one instant the accumulative effect of the countless acts of courage, cooperation, and perseverance that any heroic victory consists of. And in some ways, it's exactly by grounding this rather mythological story beat into a more real-life context that this true meaning becomes all the more clear, that it becomes all the more evident how true victory doesn't come from one grand moment of deliverance. No, it comes from within. It comes from the unwavering commitment to the heroic cause and to each other, even when things looked darkest, even when hope on the individual level seemed lost. This is exactly what the hospital staff did throughout their grand battle. And in the end, even without that grand victorious finale, it remains unmistakably clear that this was their salvation, that this was how they won.
It's the worst of humanity, but it brought out the best in the rest of us. Each of you rose to the occasion. And I can't tell you how proud I am of all of you.
Before they can go home, however, there's one final beat after the battle sequence that we, having already gone this far, naturally also find here in the pit, and that is the aftermath. This is the moment where we reflect back on the battle, what has been lost, what has been saved, and perhaps most importantly, what did it mean for the greater war? Here we get an affirmation of the thematic statement, a reminder of what the broader conflict that the battle took place in was truly about, what was truly at stake.
This place will break your heart, but it is also full of miracles, and that is a testament to all of you coming together and doing what we do best.
It's a moment to catch your breath and process the true impact that the battle had on the hospital staff. Some, as we see, are still fired up with adrenaline.
Are you feeling okay?
I feel great.
Some found a renewed sense of confidence in their choice to participate in this greater war, to dedicate themselves to this heroic effort. But there are also those for whom the battle seems to have broken something deeper on the inside, as if in their victory they ended up sacrificing some essential part of themselves, and therefore can no longer go back to the way things were, cannot go back to that ordinary world that, especially in a working hospital, pretty much immediately comes back around as regular patients start arriving in the ER again.
Yo, we're closed. We're way over capacity.
Feet hurt, brain feeling like mush. Absolutely. That patient doesn't give a shit. He needs you.
And it is here in this sobering return to the job as usual that the true gravity of this show, the importance that it carries, also began to really dawn on me. Because while the structure of the battle sequence gave a refreshing sense of suspense and excitement to what could have easily been a more straightforward hospital drama, it also did something more important as it highlighted where and how heroic virtues truly manifest themselves in our own society, highlighted the real-life heroic places, people and causes that are still too often taken for granted, and that in storytelling are at best reserved as the backdrop of more personal dramas. But the unique thing about a narrative structure like that of the Grand Battle is that it puts the heroic action front and center. And when applied to a hospital setting, what this does is that it meaningfully transforms the practice of medicine, the practice of healing, or any cause really that seeks to build, save, or nurture something in our world, into a proactive, heroic effort. It elevates the work into an epic struggle that is as exhilarating as the acts of destruction and violence which we more typically associate with such stories. This, in turn, matters a lot because at the end of the day, tales of heroic action help to inform us who we are and what we value in a society, arguably more so than any other dramatic structure. There's just something about being on the edge of your seat and on the verge of tears that makes the message of a story feel all the more visceral. Like you're not just understanding it logically, you're feeling it viscerally vibrating throughout your entire body, overwhelming you emotionally as an ecstatic truth. A truth that is revelatory in the sense that it suddenly clarifies that which truly matters. That which gives you a real vision of what is genuinely meaningful and aspirational.
Well, we survived as a species because we learned how to cooperate and communicate. So when we're in the middle of killing each other, it defies the very logic of our existence.
None of us are going to forget today. Even if we really want to.
Especially in a time where so many people are experiencing a very real crisis of meaning, wasting their talents in bullshit jobs, wasting their time with social media, wasting their lives in search of purpose and hope. It feels like the exact kind of wake-up call that is needed, the right kind of push that might just make a difference, if not to directly motivate people to start pursuing a more meaningful cause, then at least to bring more appreciation towards those that already do, towards those who have been committing themselves to a greater good in often thankless conditions, those who have been faced with hardship after hardship, sometimes even with vilification and violence, despite them being the exact people who do what only so few of us would be capable of, who are the ones who are truly holding our society together, and who deserve to be the heroes that we look up to.
Thank you for everything you did here tonight.
What you and your department did here tonight was nothing short of miraculous. People need to know that.
Thank you for everything you did here today.
What I find so magical about stories like that of the Pitt is that they can present us with something obvious, something so easily taken for granted, and then make it feel miraculous. It's that magic of great storytelling, of great filmmaking, for which I always like to turn to my favorite online cinema, Mubi. On Mubi you'll find a wide variety of movies from timeless classics to modern masterpieces. But above all, you'll find stories that matter, as every individual movie is carefully selected to bring you the best that cinema has to offer. In my Best Movies of the Year videos, I've already talked about some of their exclusive works like The Humans, The Settlers and Aftersun, which I all found to be deeply moving and meaningful. But if you're up for something new, I would also recommend the recently released Bring Them Down, a brooding Rashomon-like thriller about men trapped in generational cycles of violence. It is quiet but tense, brutal yet beautiful, and it features fantastic performances from Barry Keoghan and Christopher Abbott. If you want to check it out for yourself, be sure to use my personal link to get an extended free trial. That's mubi.com/likestoriesofold for 30 days of great cinema for free.